was screaming. I was telling him to stop. It was incredibly painful. And he was acting like it was nothing. And he seemed to be disconnected from it. It was beyond belief.
All right, same day, same shirt, different video. We're gonna talk about the Jay-Z P. Diddy situation again. I'm breaking this up in multiple videos because, I don't know, YouTube doesn't like my long forms anymore, so I have to break them up into smaller videos so I can get any views on them. Anyway, the fact that a lot of the case against P. Diddy and now Jay-Z are civil has a lot of the fanboys, fangirls, and the celebrity worship people kind of use this as a cope of they must be lying and a wagging a finger at these alleged victims that they're just gold diggers or whatever. First of all, again, we literally have something called getting paid for your pain and suffering in our judicial system. That's like an actual thing, because the courts recognize that when you do harm to someone, they have a right to be paid for their pain and suffering. But for some reason, idiots on the internet never heard of that, right? I personally think that is up to the victim, the alleged victim, to quantify whatever would make them feel better, whatever would set things right for them. And if someone believes that, hey, Jay-Z or P. Diddy going to jail does nothing for me because I still have to deal with the trauma and the PTSD and the depression and the mental health issues that was caused or bestowed upon me by these perpetrators, but a financial compensation would alleviate a lot of my problems, because therefore I don't have to struggle to get out of bed every single day. I don't have to hold back my tears and my pain while I'm trying to help customers yell at me at my minimum wage job, right? The financial payment for my pain and suffering will help alleviate a lot of the stress that I have to go through on a day-to-day basis, so I can focus on healing, so I can focus on my mental health, so I can focus on going to therapy, so I can focus on my children, right? That's what that would do. But Jay-Z going to jail, that does none of that. He just goes to jail. He pays for his crimes, but that doesn't do anything for me personally. Now, there's other people that wouldn't be happy until their perpetrator was underneath the jail. But I do think it's up to the individual alleged victim to say what they think would make them whole again, or close to as whole as you can possibly be, because even money isn't really necessarily going to fix that, right? There was another alleged victim that came out against P. Diddy, a male, and I'm going to play his clip in this video.
According to your lawsuit, you were hired by a security firm to work security at one of the infamous white parties that was thrown by Sean Combs in the Hamptons. What was that experience like?
At first, he was incredibly friendly, very gracious.
So you had a friendly chat, and then, according to your lawsuit, at some point later in the night, Sean Combs himself offered you a drink. This didn't come from staff or someone holding a tray of drinks. It came from him directly.
Correct. The first drink started to have some effect on me, and I just thought, wow, these are really strong drinks. It wasn't until the second drink, and it was already too late, that I realized that there was something wrong with the drinks. Sadly, Sean Combs was waiting in the wings. He was watching from some sort of vantage point, and once I was in a helpless position and he was sure that he was in a position of power, then he took advantage of the situation.
You allege that you were forcibly pushed into an SUV by Sean Combs. That act alone, according to your lawsuit, left you in considerable pain. And then once inside the vehicle, your lawsuit says plaintiff was held down by Combs, who overpowered him while he struggled to escape due to the effects of the drugs in his system. And it goes on to say that he sodomized you.
I was screaming. I was telling him to stop. It was incredibly painful. And he was acting like it was nothing. And he seemed to be disconnected from it. It was abusive beyond belief.
But one of the things he talked about is how this has affected him since then, up for years after.
This was the first time that he has told anyone other than his attorneys this story. He, as you see, we concealed his identity. He filed his lawsuit back in October as a John Doe. He says that he wants to keep his anonymity because he wants to keep some semblance of his life private. But that's a difficult thing to do, to sit down and tell your story to a stranger as a journalist. So I asked him, why now? Why are you coming forward now? And he said that he did not know that there were other accusers of Sean Combs out there. He only found out from seeing news reports. And there was one report he saw that there is somebody who alleged that they were 9 years old when they say that they were abused by Sean Combs. And this John Doe that I sat down with, he said, if a 9-year-old could do it, then I could do it. And it made him feel like he wished that he spoke out before, because he could have prevented children from allegedly being abused. Now, he says that not a day has gone by where he hasn't thought about this. He said that when something like this happens to you, which is, of course, his allegation that he was drugged and sodomized by Sean Combs back in 2007, he says that it impacts every part of your life. He says that he has not been able to carry on with relationships. He says that he did not tell his wife at the time, who he was married to when this allegedly happened to him. He hasn't told family members or coworkers. And again, that is one of the big reasons why he wants to remain anonymous.
People who never have gone through any trauma, who's never been assaulted or attacked or abused or anything, don't understand that it doesn't go away in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And sometimes even when you think you're done with it, that you've healed from it and you moved on, all of a sudden it will hit you like a ton of bricks 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. This stuff can destroy people's lives, right? And so he talks about how this has affected him every single day of his life since the assault happened, allegedly, right? And so he is also suing P. Diddy. He's also part of the civil lawsuit. And for me, again, the money will help alleviate the financial stresses of his life and his family's life so he can focus on his mental health and he can focus on getting better, because it's really, really hard to heal trauma when you're constantly desperately trying to pay your bills. And I know this as an assault victim and as an abuse survivor. And I went through a phase in my life where just getting out of bed to go to work was a fucking struggle because I was struggling to want to stay alive. So someone taking over my finances and helping with that gave me the space to be able to heal myself and to go to therapy and to get help for my trauma. So I think it is completely and utterly legitimate for someone to want to be paid for the pain and suffering. But of course, the fangirls and fanboys of the world will use this as an excuse of like, well, they just want compensation because they're gold diggers. Obviously, you've never been assaulted. Obviously, you've never been traumatized. Obviously, you've never been victimized. You're just a fanboy, fangirl coping with the obvious. And the other thing, I think when it comes to P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, and a lot of these celebrities that are involved, even if this case, again, even if him, the 13-year-old girl, and a lot of other these people coming out, allegations are not true, or they cannot be found to be true because there's not enough evidence. I guess I could think with this guy, like, he got some dates wrong or some times wrong, and allegedly he was like, he wasn't married at the time, but he was. When it comes to the dates, if you ask me the time and date my assault happened, I would not be able to tell you. I can probably tell you the year, 2003, but I cannot tell you a time or date it was, even though it was an extremely traumatic experience. I can tell you other little details, like I can tell you how I felt, I can tell you how they smelled, I can tell you what the street lights looked like when I was passed out in the back of the car. I can tell you a lot of other little details, but if you ask me what date and time it was, I won't know. And a lot of you who aren't coping understand that. Some of you who are parents who have grown up children, you can probably remember what it felt like the first time you seen your child take a step, but can you tell me the time and date? Just because something is significant in your life doesn't mean you're going to remember the time and date. But anyway, fair enough. He got the time and date wrong, so fair enough that P. Diddy's lawyers are going to use that, and that's fair, right?
And because initially when it was filed in October, there was the indication that it happened in 2007, right? Learning, however, that P. Diddy was in St. Tropez then, so it could not have happened then. So it was amended to include, right, the year after, okay?
He's not the perfect victim. None of these people are probably the perfect victim. So if it comes out that either A, they're lying, or B, it just cannot be proven, most of us believe they're guilty of something. And even though I am a big fan of the truth is the truth and let the truth shed the light, I'm not going to shed tears if 3 out of the 13 allegations that put Puff Daddy behind jail, allegedly, hopefully someday, and 3 of them happen to not be necessarily true. I'm not going to shed tears because that's karma. That's your karma. You know, you can't sit there and be a complete monster. You can't be a demon to people for years and think when it's time for you to get yours that is all going to be fair and clean. You weren't fair. You weren't fair and moral and right and righteous. So for me, again, if 3 out of the 13 allegations turn out to be false, yes, that should be that we should realize that they're false because the truth is the truth. But I'm still not going to shed tears. You know, it's kind of like the same thing when O.J. Simpson got away with the Nicole murder or whatever, and everyone felt like he was guilty. And then he got arrested and thrown in jail for a ridiculously amount of time for stealing his own memorabilia. Everybody knows that's not why O.J. went to jail. Everybody knows that O.J. went to jail because he got away scot-free. And so I think in a way, for me personally and for a lot of other people, maybe these aren't true, or maybe they can't be proven to be true, but they're guilty of something. So I'm not going to cry a river if a couple of non-truth ones slip through the cracks, but I would much rather them all be true and all be proven to shut the fanboys and fangirls up, really. And so these alleged victims can get justice, whether that's financial or behind bars. And the other reason why I think that the civil thing is coming up, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not in these rooms, so I don't really know what the plan is. I know, for one, they want to make sure these cases stick, so they're going to take their time. So sometimes they might put the allegation out without the names because they want to make sure they have the proof to prove that these people are guilty. And then when they can do that, they come back and amend the allegations. Second, it might be if they pay out, if they settle, that opens the floodgates like it did for Puff Daddy, like P. Diddy. When he paid Cassidy, the floodgates opened and all these allegations came forth. So that can also be the gameplay of like get them to settle on something. And even though settling does not mean you're guilty, it's seen as guilty, and that can open the floodgates. So that could have been the game plan as well. But again, innocent until proven guilty. But for me, victims are allowed to ask for compensation for the pain and suffering. That is not a red flag, or necessarily a red flag that they're not telling the truth. But you let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. All right, bye.
According to your lawsuit, you were hired by a security firm to work security at one of